Blue Bailey.
And I'm Dexter DeNovo, and this is Reading is Fundamental.
The show where we talk about news in entertainment law.
Yes, that leather daddy
And that drag queen
are both licensed California attorneys.
We celebrate queerness,
Sex positivity,
and reading bitches for filth.
and with that being said,
The library is now open.
officially.
The library is open.
Because reading is what? Fundamental.
The information on this podcast is for general information purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as legal advice for any individual, case, or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. Sorry about it.
What?
Fundamental.
Hello, and welcome back to the Reading is Fundamental podcast. I'm Dexter DeNovo.
And I'm Blue Bailey, and when we're in our fancy new shiny studio sponsored by Daddy Fleshbot.
Yes, thank you, Fleshbot. We love you. We've like I said before, we've had a lot of things to catch up on. I'm interested to catch up with you about Evil Dead Rise. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it's called?
It is Evil Dead Rise.
I have not been in the past a big horror person.
I know, I've had to train you on that.
You've literally trained me on it. And now I understand it as an art form.
It is an art form.
It is an art form, and I know. But I think I was just so scared to even approach it. But now I understand it as an art in the prosthetics and how they build these worlds and these scary things or whatever.
Yeah, there's mythology, there's camp, there's comedy, and there's homework to be done.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Scream 4.
Scream 5.
So when Scream 5 came out, he's like, you need to watch every single Scream. And I was like, seriously?
And it's not that much. There were 4.
That's 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a little bit of cardio, girl.
Literally, you were like, we're watching this one on Monday, and then on Thursday we're watching this one, and then we're watching this one, and then we're watching this one.
Yes.
And then we watched Scream 5.
And what did you say to me in the first 2 minutes?
This is favorite. But in the first, no, it was 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes.
In the first 10 minutes, I turned to him and I was like, thank you for making me do the homework. Because I got it. I understood all the callbacks to the previous movies and how they all intertwined and everything. So it's okay, it is worth it to do the homework.
It's worth it, especially in the horror genre. You gotta kind of know what the references are. Just like in drag, you gotta know the references to pop culture. The horror genre kind of has its own unique workings with that.
Yeah. I did do the homework for Evil Dead. I watched the original.
Okay, so
1970.
disclosure. Yeah, I had only seen the original Evil Dead.
Okay.
And I took my own advice, was doing the homework. I watched Evil Dead 2. Not so much a fan. And then I watched Army of Darkness, and I really hated it. It goes.
Is Army of Darkness old 1970s one?
No, Army of Darkness I think is balls deep in the 80s. So Evil Dead 2 is kind of a reboot of the first movie.
Okay.
What is it called? They retcon some of the stuff. It's only 2 people in the woods. And then it leans more into the camp, but it gets a little ridiculous sometimes. And then Army of Darkness retcons even that movie. They just ignore facts.
What is retcon?
So retcon is basically when you have the next chapter of content and it changes something that happened. Changes a fact. Maybe someone in Evil Dead there were
someone
4
didn't die.
There were 4 people in the cabin, and in Evil Dead 2 they established that there was only him and his girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
And then at the end of Evil Dead 2, he was kind of like a god. He travels back in time, and he was kind of like a god to these medieval people. But even that changed because at the start of Evil Dead 3, he's imprisoned and not feared.
Okay.
So long story short, I loved the first Evil Dead. Not a fan of the sequels. I love the remake.
This new one.
No. There was a remake in 2013.
Oh, in 2013. Yeah.
Super gory. And then I love this one. This one was I feel like the remake in 2013 was torture porn, super gore, and I love that. But it had no kind of camp element to it. And this one was a really good balance of the gore and the camp.
This was and again, I'm glad we did I did the homework because it's there was the pencil stab in the eye thing or whatever.
Yes.
And then somebody put the eyeball in the mouth and which I can't believe I'm excited about it. But it's you know, like you get the callbacks or whatever, and it is kind of that falls into the camp, I think, more. You know what I mean? Like it's so ridiculous that like somebody putting an eyeball in their mouth and like popping it out.
I feel like we're in a golden age of horror, and that like we're getting all these reboots and requels, and they're not just like cash grabs for a new movie. They're like paying attention to the details and paying homage to the other movies. So in this one, like a little detail that they threw out, there's not just one book, there's 3 volumes. So it technically makes it possible that the other movies exist in the same universe and there just was different books involved. And then on top of that, Bruce Campbell, the star of the first movie, has a little audio cameo. You know when they're playing the record?
Yeah, I've literally just got chills.
You hear someone in the background being like, "Don't read that," or like, "Stop," and that's Bruce Campbell. And he's even said that it's like it's maybe the same universe, maybe it's a multiverse where it exists. So I'm really
I can't believe I'm getting into this.
I know,
I'm like
right?
So into it. I mean I did notice that when they were playing. I just noticed it at first was like, oh, it's a callback to like when they played it at the beginning. Like I think it was like the old tapes like in the thing.
Tapes.
But then this time it was like a record or something.
It was a record, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean it's the same thing. They like play it and then the incantation happens in the book, like blah 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 does the thing. But like I didn't know it was like there was a cameo, like a voice cameo.
Oh yeah.
There. That's amazing.
And it has the most iconic tagline. Mommies with the maggots now.
Yes!
Which I've told you a million times, I really need a shirt that's like glittery blood that says Daddy's with the faggots now.
Yeah.
That's what I need.
Yes, we live for that. Well, thank you for getting me into horror. I'm still very afraid when I go.
I know, that's part of the fun.
No. Okay, yeah, you're right. But anyway. But there was a Drag Race Reddit thread that came out, and just really quick, I'm gonna explain it, and you tell me what's the best tea that you took from it. Okay. So, like, there was apparently a WoW employee, World of Wonder employee, who got fired after 10 years and went on Reddit and started just telling everybody all the production secrets that were happening. So, what was one of the tidbits that came out of that like you were like, oh my god, I didn't know that happened, or that you were like, I knew it?
I knew it. I don't really remember what they said.
Wow. Okay.
Give me like a handful. Give me yours.
One of mine was that Valentina was supposed to go a lot further in her seasons than they thought.
Okay.
Like they expected Valentina to go way far in season 9 and in All Stars 4, and just like it didn't happen. And there were like a couple times where people were expected to go far, or I'm sorry, not expected to go far, and they got further, like Crystal Method and Jada Essence Hall.
Okay.
That type of thing. They said that casting was like just pulling names out of a hat, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, more for story. Okay, I remember which one I like. All right, so mine is that Anitra was originally supposed to be eliminated on the Blame It on the Edit challenge, and that RuPaul actually still has a say in the show. Like, to me, at this point, I felt that she just showed up, said a couple lines, and wasn't it. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that she's like, I didn't know that she like actually had her hands in like controlling things. And that's what the producer or this fired employee said. Because we were at the finale.
Yeah.
She doesn't even show up. She doesn't watch the individual performances. She just shows up when there's a top 2.
She's like, based on your sickening performances, I'm like, bitch, you were not even in the room. Like, you were not even here then. This was like 3 hours before you showed up.
But I also love to just imagine that like this is just some crazy fan that's impersonating a WoW employee. Like, we don't know.
Think about that. You're totally right.
Random person on Reddit.
I think the last one before we get into our mini and our main is they actually scouted Sugar and Spice
and Lux.
I love Lux. And Sasha Colby, obviously. It's like, duh. Yeah. Like, they wanted Sasha Colby. Sugar and Spice was like, okay, they want the TikTok queens. Like, cool, whatever. And then Sasha Colby was not surprised about, because it's like, she's amazing.
Yeah.
But then Lux, I was like, oh, no wonder she was so confident the whole time.
Yeah. I think Lux has the talent to back it up.
She does, actually. And all the references. She was very good on the season.
You know I like a reference.
Speaking of this season, let's get into our first mini, or I shouldn't say our first mini, our mini for today, which is the BuzzFeed Fair Use case.
My favorite. Oh my god.
You love Fair Use?
I love Fair Use and BuzzFeed.
You're like, I love it so much. So this one happened a couple months ago, but it's this weird set of facts that happened. So there was this like woman photographer who took pictures of her friend on her motorcycle. So there's like the one lady who's on the motorcycle,
Yeah.
and then there's another lady who is taking pictures of her on the motorcycle.
Okay.
Apparently, the friend crashed on the motorcycle,
Okay.
right? And
During the photo shoot, after the photo shoot?
after the photo shoot.
Okay.
And then being a good friend, she didn't help her. She went and started taking pictures of the crash.
So this would be like the time I was like taking photos of you outside of Oasis and you fell, and I just like, if I would have just kept on taking photos.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Did you not keep taking photos? I think you did. It's like when we were outside of Oasis and you
That
got scared of the
was
rat.
there. Oh my God.
And I kept on videoing you.
The rat was the size of my dog.
It was. Your dog is small and the rat was very big. But she like kept on taking photos, which give her credit. Like
Yeah, it's
these
art.
photos,
It's beautiful.
the photos turned out really great. Like they like looked really good.
Okay.
And super artsy, and she was like bleeding and like blah blah blah, and like of course this like handsome man comes and like, you know,
It's like blood sports. I'm here for it.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, give me more blood. No, he's like helping her, and it's like, of course, like the most stunning man comes and do this. But anyway, the photos ended up being really stunning, and then they posted them all over social media.
Okay.
And then
Who was they? The photographer, the woman,
both.
the sexy dude.
a photographer and the woman.
Okay.
And I mean, this becomes a story on the internet. Like, what the fuck? Like, this lady really like took photos of her motorcycle crash.
Yeah,
And
it
she's-
seems staged.
Yeah, it seemed staged, like really staged, and especially because it's like, I guess there was like a smart water bottle like in it, and it
Yeah.
was like well in frame and like whatever. They're like, is this sponsored? Like, you know, and it could be staged, right? Because the photos came out really good. So
Train wreck by Smartwater.
it's train crashed. But it became like a story on the internet, and of course BuzzFeed picked it up because it's like, this is kind of the news that they comment on like what is going on in pop culture.
And they didn't pick up the story about the actual crash. They picked
No.
up the story about the controversy, about people
Yes.
discussing whether this is paid sponsored content, whether this was staged. So their story was about the conversation.
Yes, it was about like what the people were saying about this crash. Like, why would you post this? Was this an ad for Smart Water? Like
Okay.
that type of thing. But in that article, they used the photos. Like, they used the photos to show like what was going on. And so the photographer then sued BuzzFeed for copyright infringement of her photos.
And what did BuzzFeed say?
BuzzFeed said, no, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
She said, no, ma'am, this is not copyright infringement. So, I mean, it went to court, and BuzzFeed ended up winning on a fair use defense, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because it's an easy, like, cool way to talk about what fair use is and how it played out in this scenario. So, do you want to get us started by talking about, like, what fair use is?
Yeah, so fair use is a defense to copyright infringement.
Defense.
Yes.
A defense. You cannot say, oh, this is fair use.
Don't sue me. Like, you have to be sued, and then you have to bring up the defense of fair use.
Yes.
Granted, if you're like chatting with an attorney could probably advise you on whether something is fair use or not before you release the content. But it's a way to use someone else's work. And there's 4 elements to kind of go through that Dexter can walk us through.
Wow, way to punt it back to me. But so like there's 4 factors of fair use, and if it's presented, like if there's a copyright infringement and then there's a defense of fair use, then the court is going to use these 4 factors to determine if it is fair use or not. And it's important to know that these are factors. Like, you don't have to have every single one of them. It's like a balance of each of them, and honestly, each one of the factors is like a balance in and of itself. So the 4 of them are: 1, effect on the market; 2, the amount and substantiality of the portion that is used; 3, the nature of the work; and 4, the purpose and character of the use. So start with effect on the market. What does that mean?
That's a good question.
Wow.
Effect on the market is, if I'm understanding this right, would it... So this person's a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking photos of a woman in a motorcycle in a crash.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect on the market would BuzzFeed republishing the photos be a substitute for viewing, for someone that would want to purchase those photos, like a woman's motorcycle magazine or a car accident magazine?
Exactly.
And it's not.
Yeah,
Like,
it could be like, does it take away from that person's ability to like make a profit in the market? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
could they resell it? So is BuzzFeed's use taking away from the resellable thing about it? I would say yes. You know, like she should have like the ability to put her photos where she wants and be able to sell them to media companies, right? If she wants to. So I think that's a yes. Like, I think that's a balance in the yes. The amount and substantiality of the portion used. So it's like, are we talking about, if it's a book, are we talking about a line in the book? Are we talking about a chapter in the book? Are we talking about the whole book? You know what I mean? If it's the whole book, obviously it's not fair use. That's like infringement. But if it's a chapter, maybe. You know what I mean?
Doesn't even there's something too where it goes to the heart of the content. So even if you're using a very small piece of the content, but that's like the bulk, it could still be infringement.
That was the day you did show up to copyright class.
That was the day, yes. And I remembered the case too. It was like a tell-all book about someone, and someone got an advanced copy, and they released a very small portion, but it was like
it was the book.
Explosive content that like
it was the whole meat of the book. It was
Yeah.
like the rest was like exposition and blah 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 and like, you know, what happened after, and they released like the portion of the book that like meant it. So it could be a chapter, and that could be the amount. Here, the amount and substantiality, I mean, they did use a whole photo, right?
they used a whole photo, they used comments, and I guess the photographer's argument was that you could you don't have to use my photo. You could have only reprinted the comments. And BuzzFeed's response was no, like, yes, we could reprint the comments that are talking about a photo that nobody's gonna know what it is. Like, you have to have the photo and the comments together to understand the conversation about whether it was staged or not.
I would argue that too, because it's like, hey, you need to know that it looks like a Smart Water advertisement. You know what I mean? Or like they did look like they were staged or whatever. The third one is the nature of the work. I don't really remember what that one means, but I think it's like the type of work that it is. And if it's something that is kind of widely dispersed, you know what I mean? Then it's like you have less of a claim, as opposed to if something is like one of a kind, then, you know.
It could also mean like you're using it for educational purposes.
That's the last one.
That's the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, oops.
So the purpose and character
Skipping
of the
ahead.
use is like how it's being used. And this is the one that like really everybody weighs heavily, because we want people to be able to comment on things, and we want people to be able to like learn from things. So if a media source uses something, it's fair use because they're commenting on it, and it is their like First Amendment right as freedom of the press to be able to comment on things. And like you said, they need to use the content in order to be commenting on it. Or if it's like educational value, like you're saying like, this is a work of this artist or whatever, we're going to study how they did it or their technique or like whatever, then it's like, you know, you can use it for that kind of educational purpose. Or you're talking about history, so use some clips from people or from like the past or whatever, then that's kind of like an educational purpose. So the purpose and character of the use.
Yeah, I don't even know if this part fits into the 4 factors, but I think it's important to note that both parties took the photos, released them on Instagram, a platform that's meant for public publication, and only sought to register the copyright after the BuzzFeed article came out.
That part. Did I forget to mention that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like she had posted them on Instagram, and then it wasn't until afterward that she's going and filing for copyright registration. We could talk about copyright registration afterward. You still have like copyright, common law copyright rights, but like then she went for the registration so that she could have extra rights, and then went to this lawsuit. So it's like, okay, you were really trying it. Like, you were really trying to get in there.
Yeah, this was a money grab for sure.
Total. Like, you had no idea. And like you said, she posted on Instagram, girl. Like, if there was an effect on the market, you wouldn't put it out there for the whole world to like screen grab it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And talk about it.
This to me is just like when you have some like really hot tea in a text thread and you have to like screenshot to explain to someone so they get like the whole idea. Like, you need the whole picture, and you need to use someone else's content to be able to relay what's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, this ended up being a pretty cut and dry case, because it's like, oh, it ended up being fair use, and it ended up relying on the purpose and the character of the use as like a comment on it, and them as being a media source has like the First Amendment right to do it. So that factor weighed more heavily. I'm like, Wade more? No, Wade. Wade more heavily, and they're like, okay, yeah, this is fine. We can use the fair use defense for this, and then you're good.
Yeah. How did the case end up?
Just like that.
Okay.
They won.
BuzzFeed
That's it.
won.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, thank you, bye, ma'am. Go sell your motorcycle photo somewhere else. And do that. Any other comments about fair use?
I think fair use is something that a lot of people I think the defense thing that we were mentioning earlier, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm using this, it's fair use, you can't do anything to me. And it's like, no, like, you may have an argument that something is fair use, but you need to be prepared to spend your dollars to go into court and defend it.
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning, like, you can have some attorney advise you whether or not something is fair use. Like, if a media source came to me and was like, oh, hey, could we use this or whatever, you might be like, oh, this is pretty clear that you're going to win because it's like a media source and you're commenting about what's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's how like a lot of YouTubers get away with it too, because it's like, if you're doing a reaction video to the video, you know what I mean? You have to show the video in order to react to the video. You know what I mean? So it's like, you get away with it that way.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Do you
want to go to our main?
And so our main challenge, which is actually very relevant to our trip here today, we're going to be talking about the writer's strike, which as we were driving into Burbank, we just saw people all over the sidewalk with picket signs. It was pretty awesome.
Very happy to see that lots of people were honking. Like, everybody who was driving by was like honking and giving support. I shouldn't say everybody. You said your driver did
my Lyft
that.
driver did not.
A lot of people were honking and giving their support, which is like, gives me like happiness to know that like the community is out there and they're knowing what's happening and they're, you know, supporting their like fellow people, Los Angelinos. But that was great. The second was all their signs were the same.
Yeah, they were all the same with like a little area to like write in a personal note. I thought it was cute to have them all uniform, but
I was like, when I saw on the news,
I couldn't read the small words.
Yeah, I was like, when I saw on the news, people had different signs, so I was like expecting to see some funny ones or like whatever. And I'm like, y'all the same. And I thought you were writers. I thought you could write something funny on your signs. So that was like a little. Okay, fine.
Wow, way harsh tie.
Way harsh tie. Oh my God, that's Clueless?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. You are a little older than me, so I don't get your references.
Slightly older. Everyone knows Clueless. Shut up.
I don't think so. If you were born in 2000, you do not know Clueless.
You know Clueless.
Which, by the way, if you were born in 2000, you are 23 years old now.
I know.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Okay, we're getting off topic. Let's get back into this writer's strike.
So, give us some context. What was the last time the writer's strike happened?
Okay, so there's the last major writer's strike was in 2007. Oh, okay. And I think the big writer's strike before that, I want to say, was like 1988.
So we're due.
Actually, a fun fact, I found that Cops became a TV show because of the first writer's strike.
No way.
A lot of the times that the writer's strike, we lean into unscripted television, and that was kind of the birth of Cops.
Wow.
In 2007, it was also the birth of the Celebrity Apprentice. The Apprentice was supposed to die out, but they reconfigured it with Donald Trump, and that's how we got him as president.
Why did
it was
you
the
bring
writer's
that
strike.
up?
It was the writers not being paid
properly. The Cops was good, then you had to bring Trump into that.
Was the Cops good?
Oh, you're right. The Cops wasn't good either.
The Cops was super racist.
What happened to Cops? Is it still there?
I don't know if it's still there now.
It's like, yay, let's show people like chokeholding people on television. God, that's awful. So since that, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, it's leaned into like reality television or whatever. So like, that's one of the things we can expect to come out of this is like, you know, more reliance on reality television. But I think one of the main reasons why the strike is happening is just because so much has changed in the last however many years it's been since 2007, 2008. And now everything is streaming, like literally everything.
Yeah, so that was a major discussion in the 2007 writer's strike was talking about internet rights, which at that time the writers took as a win because they were, instead of getting nothing for things that streamed on the internet, they got some royalties for it. Or what's the other word? Not royalties, dividends.
Royalty? No, you're right.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. But nobody could expect that streaming was going to become what it is today. I mean, it was a slow growth.
Yeah.
The pandemic kind of sped that up a lot with a lot of titles going immediately to streaming. Some movies only going to streaming. And the way that television shows come out now, we don't have 24 season shows anymore.
Yeah, 24 episodes.
24 episodes, yes. We don't have 24 season shows anymore.
I was thinking about it. I was like, because when I was reading up on it, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I guess I didn't notice that like episodes now are just like 8 to 12, or seasons now are just like 8 to 12 episodes.
It could even be 6.
It could even be 6.
White Lotus was 6.
I was going to say White Lotus was like
Obi-Wan
6 or 7.
6,
Yeah. So it's like, wow, okay, they really are getting shorter. And if you're getting paid per project, you know what I mean, or you're getting paid per episode, the length of it matters. Like, you know, you're not going to be making as much money, and once this one's done, what are you going to do now? You know what I mean? Like, if you had this whole time blocked off to do 24 episodes and now it's only 6, then you need to find another job. Like,
right. So the way that the industry used to run would be you would have these 24 episode shows, residuals. That's the word. That's the word, not royalty, which is a type of royalty.
We got there.
But you would work on the show. You would have guaranteed like a long set amount of time to work, and then every time that the show would re-air or go to another platform, the writers would get a residual, so that when they were in between gigs, they would have money to kind of live on. And all of that's really changed. Like, you don't have those longer project shows anymore. As you mentioned, shows are 6 to like 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And you don't really have things going to different platforms anymore. You have something that's going to Disney Plus, and then it lives on Disney Plus forever, and it's not really distributed to other places.
I would say, like, I'm not mad at like a 6 episode season. I'm not mad about it, but because some, like, it's just different, right? Like, I think that in the 2000s, we were still kind of like based in the sitcom, you know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking of The Office and like shows like that. Like, it ran for like a long time on the prime time, and so you had like those 24 episodes or whatever it was. But then we got to streaming, and then it was like, oh, we can make like this work of art, but it only needs 6 episodes to be done. You know what I mean? Or maybe they were limited to budget or like whatever it was. So it's like, I don't think I hate that, or like that change, but they should be compensated like according to what it is. And I think from the articles that we read, the most like shocking thing to me was that the studios were like, now is not the time to be negotiating pay, guys. Like, this is not the time. Like, they're like, we're losing money on streaming, and streaming is like not as profitable as we thought, so now's not the time. And it's like, girl, like for real, you'd be like, I know you're struggling, but now's not the time. We're struggling more.
So what are the writers asking for this time?
That is a good question. I don't know like exactly the points that they're negotiating, but it's for like fair pay in how it's being distributed, and like according to like what work they're being done, especially like there's instances where you could be like in a writer's room preemptively like pitching items or whatever, and then it just gets shut down. You know what I mean? So it's like, now your whole income is gone.
Right. So before, the writers used to stay with the show from the inception to shooting to post, and now it seems that writers are kind of just involved in the very beginning. They write all the episodes, and then
that's it.
That's it. They're done. So one of the demands that the writers want would be more longevity with the show and longer term contracts. Something else that they're asking for, which I think the studios are very not wanting to do, is a minimum set of writers per show.
Oh, so you have to have like a certain amount of people.
Yeah. Okay.
I did look into like what is the Writers Guild and like what the minimum basic agreement is, but we can get into that in a minute. The articles that I read were like, okay, this is how it's going to affect our entertainment viewing or whatever, and I went and I put them like in order of what's going to go first and what's going to go last.
All right, let's talk about it.
So the first one's going to be late night shows. You've already seen it. Conan O'Brien, is he even on the air? Seth Meyers.
Are you sure you're not a drag queen from the 90s? All
I
these shows are
literally have
canceled.
no. You tell me all the time. You're like, how are you a drag queen that doesn't know pop culture? I'm like, I just don't. Like, I don't.
You don't know makeup. You don't know pop culture.
I did know Clueless.
You don't know fashion.
I do know fashion,
And
bitch.
yet you're still here. All right.
Wow.
So.
What do you have to offer? That's right. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Seth Meyers is on TV,
Maybe.
and so is Stephen Colbert. Those are going to be first. So those are
And that's because those shows are usually written
that day.
That day.
Like they're written that day.
So you don't have writers for that.
Yeah, they literally show up. They like pitch ideas about what the news is and blah blah blah, and then they write a little script and then it's on air that night. So
Same thing with like SNL. SNL is dark.
SNL is going to be dark. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So first wave is late night and kind of skits that get done.
Mm-hmm,
What's second wave?
Soap operas. So apparently soap operas only film about like a month in advance. They like really kind of turn them out, and then it's like for an actor it's like a regular work. You go in and film the next episode once a week, and then it gets
Is it once a week? Aren't soap operas like daily, or do they?
they
used to
might be
be
daily. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it depends on what it is.
I'm not that gay.
Yeah.
I mean, I am, but
But that's gonna go away pretty soon. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's already been a couple
so
weeks.
the soaps are next. First, they came for the late nights.
Then they
I
came
said
for
nothing.
the soaps. Then we've got the sitcoms. Those film like a couple months in advance, and so they might have some in the can right now,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll slowly get released. So by the end of the year, if there's like nothing resolved anytime soon, we're gonna like run out of episodes. The example that I have is The Office. So last time, I wish remember what season it was. Maybe like 3 or 4 of The Office. The writer's strike happened, and so that season was only like 10 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've seen before, like, studios, like, will either go dark, they'll slow production, we'll get shorter episode seasons, or we'll just get really bad television because they'll start hiring non-union writers, which, they are able to
okay.
start. I think Heroes did that. And, I don't want to, like, dig on like non-union writers, but I'm assuming if you're not integrated into the writing process and you're coming in without knowing the inner workings, you're not going to understand it.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to just like know what the show is about. Honestly, you know what I mean? You're like jumping into it.
Yeah. Or it's just going to fall on the producers to continue the show who may or may not have writing skills. What I found interesting is that Apple is telling writers that, hey, if you're also a producer, you still have to come in and work as a producer. And the Writers Guild is being like, no, because I mean, there's still writing involved. Like, no, like if they're striking on one, they could strike across the board. But I thought that was an interesting loophole.
Interesting.
I was also reading that like the other guilds, like I believe the Directors Guild, has their contract negotiations coming up soon, and that they may also decide to strike in solidarity with the writers.
Work.
So that could be, yeah.
I love that. Okay, so we got that. The next one is going to be movies. As we know, movies shoot like well in advance, like year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years like in advance. So everything that's going to be filmed, I mean, the scripts have already been written, like blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be like less affected. And the thing that's like pretty much not affected is what you said, like reality television, that I should say reality television that doesn't have like a script writer for it, right? So if it's like a game show will still have like, I write the quiz answers or things like that. You know what I mean?
Like Drag Race is a reality show, and
Reality
the
show.
acting challenges are all scripted. I wonder if it applies to music writing. Like, you know how they like create the songs that they lip sync to? I wonder if that would be affected by it.
Ooh, I wonder if somebody writes the lyrics and they're the writer.
Yeah,
And then, so it's like we can't have Wig Loose the Musical.
we may not.
What are they going to do? They're going to be filming like next week.
Like
They're
next
gonna be
week, yeah.
They better get somebody to write the script. How are they gonna film these challenges?
We're gonna have season 11 all over again.
But yeah, if it's what happened?
Yeah,
Season 11.
it
Oh,
was
it's just
just
really
bad.
bad.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have another really shit season. We're gonna have Trump the Rusical.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's literally.
I feel like we had that already.
We did.
We did.
That was season 11.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's literally I've watched
I'm
every
spacing.
single episode of Drag Race except for that one.
Yeah.
I just could not. I was like, you guys made such a bad choice.
I just watched it recently because Sean's on season 11.
Ew.
We're making our way through season 11.
Ew.
But like shows that that are filming right now that already have the episodes written are going to be fine. Like, I'm obsessed with Interview with the Vampire. The fan page has already said that the writing's done and they're still shooting. Shows that are on right now, like Succession, that's not going to get fucked up. We're going to have a good ending for that. But yeah, I guess it really depends on how long it lasts. The last writer's strike lasted 100 days.
And that's a thing that I think is like scary to think about. Is one of the articles I read from the New York Times was talking about how like I think it was like 2.1 billion hit to the economy, like the local economy.
Because it's not just writers,
it's
it's all the industry around it.
Yeah.
The food, the dry cleaning, everything.
Yeah. I mean, like car services. Yeah. Like everything is going to be affected. So that's scary. I hope that the people in those industries know that like they're fighting too, you know what I mean? So it's like if they get paid more, then it'll help the economy eventually. But that like really sucks to think that people are going to be affected again, especially if they've been in this career for a long time. But I think we need to do what we need to do, and they need to get paid.
Yeah, and I think there's this notion that like, why should we care about the writers in Hollywood? Aren't they all like rich, living in the hills, snorting cocaine off porn stars' dicks and all that fun stuff? Some of them are. I mean, Bryan Singer probably is, but allegedly.
Allegedly. Thank you for throwing that in.
But we're talking about like kind of like the middle class of writers that aren't established. Like the way that the industry is changing is really fucking them over. That they're really not able to get a livable wage. Mm-hmm. They're not able to afford a house in LA.
And they're really scrambling to like put all these gigs together in order to make a living. And it's like, you shouldn't have to be working so many gigs to like make a living. Like it's like working 2 or 3 jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also found it interesting because the studios are like, oh, we don't have money. This isn't the right time. And streaming is still very profitable. We're just kind of hitting the next inflection point. Like Netflix is still popular, but they're getting to the point where it's not like they're able to get more subscribers. Like they're saturated. They've got all the subscribers that they have. And yes, some people are falling off. So there's not that much room for growth, but they're still profitable and making a lot of money from it.
So I think there's a difference there. So like when I read it, I was like, oh, these companies are saying they're not profitable. But I think there's a difference because companies like Netflix, they changed the game like a long time ago, right? So they were doing these DVDs and then they're like, what if we produce our own content and then that way we don't have to pay these licensing fees for all these DVDs? So they're like, okay, if we make our own content, then we don't have to pay licensing fees. We just have it on our platform. So that's different. They were able to do that. But think about NBC Universal or like Paramount or like those companies. Their base is cable television and like sitcoms. You know what I mean? And so that's what they pour all their money into. And so now they're like, oh, we should do this streaming thing. And that revenue stream is not profitable. You know what I mean?
But they're still making hella money from everything else.
Maybe. I don't know. So it's like at least that's what they're saying is like this revenue stream that they have is not profitable. The money that they're putting into that is not coming back. But it's like, girl, it's like this is a story over and over and over. It's like, who is you're the one that's making like tens of millions of dollars and
World's
like
smallest.
yes, for real. It's like
the studios.
Literally like your stock options could pay for all of these like people's salaries for the next year. So it's like, let's stop with the like complaining about it.
I really want to get into the artificial intelligence conversation.
Oh, God.
So, like, back in 2007, internet content was kind of like the Wild West, where the writers knew that they needed to negotiate to have some rights and get some money from it, but they didn't really exactly know what was going to happen with it. I feel like the same is happening here with artificial intelligence. The writers are arguing for kind of just structure around it, and we don't really know where it's going. There's fears that a studio will just be like, hey, I need a rom-com with Drew Barrymore and have AI.
And ChatGPT is going to write it.
And ChatGPT is going to write it, and instead of having a room full of 6 writers, you maybe have
one that refines it.
1 or 2, that refines it.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Oh God, you triggered me with the AI thing. Like, it's come out of nowhere, I feel like, and it's like everybody's obsessed about it, like all of a sudden, and like nobody. To me, it's like we've released this evil technology onto the world, and like no barriers and like whatever. So it's like it's just gonna end up in chaos. And like here is a another example.
Yeah, I actually okay. So one of the
Because you could just put old scripts into it and train it with the old scripts and be like, here's the characters, write a new one. Like,
and you may not get like Oscar-worthy content. You may not get the next Game of Thrones from it, but you can certainly get those Lifetime movies like turned out. One of the best signs I did see, like they're all generic, but they have their little areas, was like don't side with Skynet, and I thought that was kind of great.
Oh,
in terms of like the AI conversation going on here.
I mean, I was gonna ask if you really think that will happen, but I think it might.
I think it's already happening. They're already using AI for special effects and other things.
Stay away from AI, kids. Don't do AI. Don't do it. Just don't
from
do
a copyright perspective, who would own the script?
The Copyright Office did issue guidance on this, and it is not the computer. Obviously, it's the person who like puts it in.
Okay.
But there is no copyright ability in the GPT output.
What does that mean?
Like the machine, if the machine chugged something out, there's no copyright ability in that.
So is it public domain? Okay, so then
this is new area of law.
I know, new area. So let's say you put a script into ChatGPT and you have one writer there to refine it. Does it become that one writer's copyright if he made two little tweaks to it?
Well, then
or she or they?
We get into work for hire, right?
Yep.
I mean, is the writer working for a studio, then it's work for hire. If you'd like to hear about work for hire, tell us in the comments and we'll talk about it. But then it's like, I think then somebody would own it though. Then I think if somebody changes it and makes, its own thing, then I think it would be sufficiently copyrightable.
Okay.
Yeah. Any last words about the writer's strike?
It feels like it sucks that they didn't get what they want. But it does feel like a necessary evil that needs to happen every once in a while. It feels like we get an agreement in 1988, we get an agreement in 2007, and technology just changes so fast that the corporate policies and structures don't change with it. And unfortunately,
what hasn't changed is like rampant capitalism and people keeping all the money when they should be distributing it.
Yep, that's it. Fuck capitalism.
Fuck
move to Russia.
Capitalism. Thank you for watching, and fuck capitalism. But for real, I love chatting about this with you, and we'll see you next time.
Because reading is what?
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Reading is Fundamental.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the show for free. As a reminder, Reading is Fundamental is brought to you by Fleshbot.com, the leading resource for gay erotica.
DM us with your comments, questions, and let us know what you want to hear.
Or you can email us at readingisfundamentalpodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time,
remember to read your damn contracts. Why?
Because reading is what?
Fundamental.
Fundamental.
Fundamental.